What if one of the greatest financial minds in all of human history wasn't a millionaire, a scholar, or an economist, but a man hidden in the pages of the Bible? His name was Joseph, a prisoner forgotten by the world, yet destined by God to become the architect of the most effective saving strategy ever recorded. Before banks existed, before financial systems were invented, Joseph carried a wisdom that rescued nations from collapse. Most people overlook this, but the first blueprint for strategic saving didn't come from human intelligence. It came from divine revelation. And if you understand the principles behind Joseph's journey, your finances won't change because of luck. They'll change because you're aligning yourself with the same timeless wisdom that lifted him from a prison cell to a palace. Today, we uncover the 10 saving principles that transformed Joseph into the most influential economic leader of his time. And if you stay until the end, the final principle might be the one that breaks the cycle of scarcity in your own life and sets the foundation for lasting abundance. While the entire nation of Egypt was celebrating prosperity, Joseph was thinking far beyond the moment. People were eating, spending, and enjoying the best years they had ever known, but Joseph carried something they didn't: vision. His decisions were not driven by fear, panic, or scarcity. They were shaped by divine insight into what was coming. That is the first great principle of biblical saving. True wisdom looks beyond the present. During the 7 years of abundance, Joseph did not relax or assume good times would last forever. He collected, prepared, and stored with purpose. He didn't save because he was afraid of losing what he had. He saved because he understood that abundance without purpose eventually disappears. Most people today react to their finances emotionally, saving only when crisis forces them to. But Joseph teaches that saving is not a reaction to fear. It is a response to revelation. He knew that good seasons are not permanent, and that wisdom prepares during abundance for challenges that abundance cannot predict. Joseph didn't improvise. He planned intentionally. He lived with direction while others lived day to day. And that's where true stewardship begins. When you stop reacting to your circumstances and start aligning your life with a larger, God-given purpose. Saving, for Joseph, was not a safety net. It was obedience. It was trust in a future he could not yet see, guided by a vision greater than himself. Joseph was not given a vague instruction about saving. He was given a clear, measurable strategy. Set aside 1/5 of everything produced during the abundant years. This was not a suggestion, nor was it based on how people felt. It was a disciplined percentage, 20%, established before anyone spent a single portion of their harvest. This simple instruction reveals a powerful truth. Saving is not something you do with whatever happens to be left over. Saving begins with a decision made before you touch what you receive. Joseph didn't say, "Let's save if there's something remaining at the end." He said, "This portion is set aside first." That mindset separates wisdom from wishful thinking. Many people today say, "When I earn more, I'll start saving." But Joseph's principle exposes why that rarely happens. Saving has nothing to do with income level. It has everything to do with order. When you decide that a fixed percentage of your resources is sacred, untouchable, purposeful, and consistent, you train your mind to manage rather than react. The 20% wasn't about the amount. It was about obedience and discipline. Even if your current ability to save is small, the habit itself builds a foundation. It shapes your thinking, strengthens your stewardship, and creates room for God to bless what is handled with intention. When you set aside your portion before spending, you declare that your future has value. You declare that purpose leads your decisions, not impulse. And as Joseph's example shows, order always attracts provision. Joseph didn't simply gather grain into a giant pile and hope for the best. He built a system, intentional, orderly, and strategically designed for long-term survival. He stored food city by city, dividing the abundance into different locations rather than keeping everything in one place. That detail reveals something crucial. Saving without structure is simply accumulation, and accumulation without organization eventually collapses. Many people assume their financial struggles come from not earning enough. But more often, the real issue is the absence of a system. Money without structure slips away silently. It dissolves through small decisions, emotional spending, and lack of clarity. Joseph understood this long before modern financial tools existed. Even without banks, spreadsheets, or budgeting apps, he created a distribution network so effective that it sustained an entire nation and the surrounding world during famine. Saving is only the first step. You must know where your savings go, why they're there, and how they support your purpose. Joseph's method teaches a modern truth. Financial strength comes from organization, not just income. Create categories, assign roles, separate what is for saving, investing, giving, and emergencies. When everything has a place, nothing gets lost. Confusion is the enemy of blessing, and order is the foundation of stewardship. Joseph's system was not glamorous, but it was powerful. It proves that breakthroughs often come, not from earning more, but from organizing what you already have. One of the most remarkable details in Joseph's story is not that he saved, it is how long he saved. He didn't collect grain for a single season or for a short, motivated burst of effort. He stored it faithfully for 7 uninterrupted years. Year after year, harvest after harvest, Joseph stayed committed to the same disciplined plan, even when abundance made saving seem unnecessary, and even when others grew tired of the routine. This reveals a truth many people struggle to accept. Saving is not a moment of inspiration. It is a lifestyle. Anyone can save for a week. Anyone can feel motivated for a month. But consistency is what builds security. Consistency is what Joseph practiced when no one applauded, when no one understood the purpose, and when no crisis had yet arrived. Most people save only when they feel pressure or when fear pushes them. But Joseph saved when everything looked perfect, when comfort could have easily replaced discipline. That's what made his preparation so powerful. He understood that discipline today becomes protection tomorrow. Saving is like planting seeds. You don't see the harvest immediately. At times it may feel pointless, slow, or invisible. But the seeds you sow in the good years become the shelter you stand under in the hard years. Joseph's unwavering commitment during abundance is what preserved Egypt during famine. His example reminds us that preparation must not wait for a problem. The best time to build stability is when life feels stable. During the years of extraordinary abundance, the people of Egypt slipped into a mindset that still misleads countless people today. We have plenty, so let's enjoy everything now. They saw abundance as a guarantee, a signal to relax, spend freely, and celebrate without restraint. But Joseph understood something deeper. He recognized that abundance is not a license to consume. It is an invitation to manage wisely. While the crowds were celebrating, Joseph was storing. While others were spending everything they touched, Joseph was preserving what God had provided. He knew that prosperity can be dangerous when it blinds you to responsibility. Success without self-control destroys faster than scarcity ever could. There is a powerful difference between enjoying abundance and being ruled by it. Many people live as though abundance means they will never face need, never encounter crisis, never experience dry seasons. But Joseph understood that abundance comes with purpose, not permission. Saving isn't greed. It isn't a lack of faith. It is wisdom. It is honoring what you've been entrusted with. True stewardship means using abundance to prepare for what you cannot yet see. The hard truth is this: a foolish person isn't someone who has nothing. It's someone who spends everything. Abundance exposes your habits. It reveals whether you see money as a tool for purpose or a tool for pleasure. Joseph refused to let abundance deceive him. His restraint, his discipline, and his clarity in good times became the reason an entire world survived in bad times. Joseph did not save to feel secure. He did not store grain to build personal wealth or create a sense of superiority. His saving had a purpose far greater than himself. It was meant to preserve life. When the famine swept across the land, Egypt had bread. But it didn't stop there. People from surrounding nations traveled great distances because Joseph's preparation became their lifeline. In one of the most powerful twists in Scripture, the very family that once betrayed Joseph, sold him, rejected him, abandoned him, was the same family saved by the grain he had stored. That is the beauty of purposeful saving. It becomes the bridge through which God fulfills promises, heals relationships, and rescues generations. Biblical saving is never selfish. It isn't about hoarding or building emotional security. It is about stewardship, positioning yourself so you can be a blessing at the exact moment others need it most. Your savings may one day support a ministry, help someone in crisis, or become the seed that sparks a breakthrough for someone else's future. Fear-driven saving isolates. Purpose-driven saving multiplies. Joseph didn't save because he was afraid. He saved because he believed in a vision bigger than himself. Every grain he stored carried a divine intention. He wasn't just preparing for famine. He was participating in God's plan for restoration. Your savings can do the same. When you save with intention, you create capacity for God to move through you. You build space for generosity, for impact, and for miracles. Joseph's grain fed more than stomachs. It fulfilled destiny. Joseph's rise to power was not sudden, accidental, or based on luck. His promotion was built on years of quiet, consistent faithfulness. Long before he managed Egypt's grain, he managed Potiphar's household with excellence. Before he interpreted the king's dream, he organized the prison with integrity. Joseph didn't wait for a throne to start practicing leadership. He governed everything placed in his hands, no matter how small or unfair his circumstances seemed. When Joseph stood before Pharaoh, the king didn't just see a man who could interpret dreams. He saw someone with order, discipline, strategy, humility, and the rare ability to manage wisely under pressure. That is why Joseph was trusted with the entire nation. He demonstrated a truth many ignore. God does not promote people who desire influence but neglect stewardship. He elevates those who prove they can handle little before he entrusts them with much. Many people want authority, opportunity, and abundance, yet struggle to manage what they already have. But Joseph's life shows that promotion is not an event. It is the natural outcome of faithfulness. When the famine arrived, Pharaoh didn't panic. He turned to the one man who had shown unwavering responsibility during abundance. Joseph became the answer precisely because he had prepared long before the crisis. Saving is not just a financial act. It is leadership training. When you govern your money well, you demonstrate that you can govern greater responsibilities. And when the right moment comes, God lifts those who have quietly mastered what others waste. Joseph didn't chase influence. His stewardship created it. When Joseph was praised for interpreting Pharaoh's dream, he didn't respond with confidence or pride. He didn't claim brilliance, experience, or special insight. Instead, he offered one of the most defining statements of his life. "This is not from me. God will give the answer." In that moment, Joseph revealed the true source of his wisdom. Everything he knew, every strategy, every insight, every decision, flowed not from human calculation, but from divine guidance. This is what separates biblical prosperity from mere human success. Saving wisely is not only about numbers, planning, or discipline. True stewardship begins with humility, recognizing that vision comes from God. Joseph did not rely solely on logic to decide when to save, how much to store, or how to prepare for the future. He listened. He sought direction. He allowed God to shape his perspective long before he acted. Many people today make financial decisions based only on emotion, fear, pressure, or personal reasoning. But Joseph's life teaches that the greatest breakthroughs come from spiritual alignment, not mental calculation. Before making a move, he sought God's clarity. Before committing to a plan, he waited for instruction. This is why his strategy worked. It wasn't just intelligent, it was inspired. Joseph's humility opened the door to wisdom that exceeded human understanding, and that wisdom transformed him from a forgotten slave into a leader who shaped nations. True financial strength comes not just from planning, but from partnership with God. When your decisions are guided by Him, your management becomes more than strategy. It becomes obedience. It becomes purpose. It becomes destiny. When the famine tightened its grip on the world, people from every land began traveling to Egypt desperate for food. And at the center of this global crisis stood Joseph, a man once thrown into a pit, forgotten in a prison, and underestimated by everyone who knew his past. Now, he was the most sought-after leader on earth. Nations didn't come for entertainment, inspiration, or politics. They came because Joseph had what they lacked: preparation. His influence wasn't the result of charisma, wealth, or military power. It came from discipline, obedience, and foresight. His consistency during abundance created stability during crisis, and stability naturally draws people. This is the hidden power of stewardship. When you manage well, influence follows you. You don't have to chase it. Saving does more than help you survive hard times. It positions you to lead others through them. When you can govern your own resources, you demonstrate maturity, reliability, and wisdom. People trust those who prove they can handle pressure before pressure arrives. Joseph didn't seek authority. He lived with purpose. And because he lived with purpose, God elevated him at the exact moment the world needed someone who was prepared. His saving became his credibility. His discipline became his influence. His stewardship became his calling card to nations. Financial wisdom is not only about protection, it is preparation for purpose. Joseph's life shows that those who faithfully manage what they have will one day find themselves guiding those who never prepared at all. Many people treat financial management as something purely practical: numbers, budgets, strategies. But for Joseph, saving was far more than economics. It was worship. It was obedience. Every time he stored grain, he wasn't simply filling a warehouse. He was honoring the vision God had given him. He was acting on a future no one else could see, trusting a promise no one else understood. Joseph's saving was spiritual long before it was practical, and when the famine arrived, his obedience became provision. What he stored in faith became the very thing that sustained nations. That is the heart of biblical saving. It does not replace faith, it reveals it. Saving under God's direction isn't about hoarding. It's about aligning your actions with God's purpose for tomorrow. Joseph's story destroys the idea that spiritual life and financial life are separate. His faith shaped how he managed resources, and his management became a testimony of his faith. God doesn't multiply what we waste. He multiplies what we steward with intention. The famine exposed a timeless truth. Money itself is not the problem. The problem is a lack of purpose. God desires his people to live free, not enslaved by spending, overwhelmed by debt, or trapped by impulsive decisions. He wants them steady, prepared, and positioned to bless others. Joseph's life calls us to a higher way of living. Plan before you spend. Set aside with intention. Be consistent when no one is watching. Prepare with vision, not fear. And above all, recognize that true provision doesn't come from the abundance of the moment, but from the God who guides you through every season. When you live by these principles, money stops controlling your life and becomes a tool for purpose. Stewardship becomes worship, and your preparation becomes the vessel through which God can provide, not just for you, but for those around you. This is Joseph's legacy, that obedience in ordinary moments prepares you for extraordinary responsibility.